Good afternoon, teacher. I will introduce you to the talk of the epidemics about the time. Next.
Severe epidemic of 1649. It was the biggest epidemic crisis that Seville has suffered, which meant a great bankruptcy of its population, in which at least 6,000 people died, representing 46% of the city population. Background. Floods occur in entire neighborhoods of the city, in particular the Alameda de Hercules, which was navigated with boats. The greatest avenue of the Guadalquivir had made it difficult to supply the city. The storage produced a sharp increase in food prices, and many people suffered from hunger. People lost their life every day, and although the contagion affected the entire city, it reached its maximum virulence in the poorest and overcrowded neighborhoods like that of Triana. Death. There are no released data of the number of deaths. Data have been considered that raise the mortality to 200,000 people. It is currently assessed that half of the epidemic will have pre-epidemic values until decades or even centuries later.
The Great Plague of London. Lasted from 1665 to 1616, it was the last major epidemic of bubonic plague to occur in England. The so-called the Great Plague came to London via ships from the Netherlands, where it had already been wreaking havoc on a much smaller scale for some years. The origin of the plague, called bubonic plague, was due to rats, which in turn carried fleas affected by the bacterium called Yersinia pestis. The Great Plague killed about 1,100 people, almost of the quarter of London population in 18 months. The overcrowding of the population and the poor hygienic condition of the poor neighborhoods were the key condition for the epidemics to spread uncontrolled throughout the city. The major circumstances that managed to contain the epidemic. The first of these was the organization of the burial of corpses without further delay in the Musgraves, and the second historical event known to all London, the Great Fire of 1616.
Smallpox. It's a serious disease that easily transmits from one person to another. It's very contagious, and it's caused by a virus. It begins with an oropharyngeal infection. The virus is now multiplies in macrophages and it passes into a circulation and has a new complication in the lymph nodes. Continues with a second viremia reaction to small dermal and mucosa vessels. Next, the incubation period. The incubation period is to 7 days to 19 days, average in 22 days, and the pre-urinative period it takes 2 days to 4 days to root on the tongue on the mouth in the form of red spots, rash and pustules, and pustules and scabs. And scabs will fall in 6 days. Next. And the symptoms. After the incubation period, the first symptoms occur fever, malaise, headache, and pain in the body, and sometimes is vomiting. Next. The smallpox in the Iceland in 1707. In the smallpox is believed to have appeared in the India or Egypt in 3,000 years ago. In Iceland during the contagion of 1,107, almost a third of the population died in 31% due to smallpox, but some were already immunized for having previously suffered from the disease, so the fatality rate in this epidemic could approach to 50%. Next, and the vaccine. The smallpox vaccine contains a live vaccine virus which is related to the smallpox virus and provides immunity against it. There is no proven treatment for the smallpox, but some antiviral medications can help to treat it or keep it from getting worse.
The Great Plague of Marsala. The Great Plague of Marsala was the last major outbreak of bubonic plague in the western of Europe. Arriving in Marsala, France in 1720, the disease killed a total of 1,100 people, 50,000 in the city during the next 2 years, and the another 50,000 to the north in surrounding provinces and towns. Next. The Yersinia pestis is a gram-negative, non-motile, rod-shaped Coccobacillus bacterium with no spores. It is a facultative anaerobic organism that can infect humans via the oriental rat fleas. It causes the diseases of plague, which take three main forms: pneumonic, septicemic, and the bubonic. Next. The Sanitation Board. The Sanitation Board was one of the first executive body formed by the city of Marsala. It was established to support the board's increasing responsibilities. Next. The quarantine system. Even a clean bill of health for a ship requires a minimum of 80 days quarantine of the island location. During such time, the crew will be held in one of the lazarets that were constructed around the city. Next. During a 2 year period, 50,000 of Marsala's total population of 90,000 died, and an additional 50,000 people in other areas succumbed as the plague spread north, eventually reaching Aix-en-Provence, Arles, Apt, and Toulon. Estimates indicate an overall death rate of between 25% until 50% for the population in the larger area, with the city of Marsala at 40%, the area of Toulon at above 50%, and the area of Aix and Arles at 25%. Next. The reason. In 1998, an excavation of a mass grave of victims of the bubonic plague outbreaks was conducted by scholars from the University de la Méditerranée. The anatomic techniques used appear to be identical to those described in a surgical book dating from 98.
The cholera. Cholera is a contagious disease occurring intestinal caused by the serotypes 01 and 0139. The bacteria Vibrio cholerae which produce a secretory diarrhea characterized by profuse watering stool, pale milky, like water washing rice, contain high sodium, bicarbonate, and potassium, and low amount of protein. In more than 15 countries and has produced several worldwide epidemics. Since 1817, seven cholera pandemic has spread from Asia to the rest of the world. The last of one occurred in 1961 and affect between 3 and 5 million people per year, leading around 120,000 people. Cholera around times, pandemics, and epidemics. The first description of the disease can be seen in the writing of Hippocrates, Galen, and Wang Chunhe. In the story of ancient India, there are writings that describe the disease in population 7 certain of the bank of the Ganges River. However, it is not probable that these descriptions are specifically produced by B. cholera. Nor is it clear as being present in the epidemic from currently known disease. First pandemic, 1816 to 1826. Previously restrained to the Indian subcontinent, it started in Bengal and expanded through India around 1820. It spread to China and this capital scenes before declining. Second pandemic, 1829 and 1851. It's reaching Europe, London in 2032, New York in the same time, and the Pacific coast of North America in 1834. Third pandemic, 1852 to 1816. It mainly affects Russia with more than a million deaths. For pandemic, 1863 to 1875. It spread mostly through Europe and Africa. Fifth pandemic, 1899 to 1923. Have little effect in Europe, thanks to advance in public health, but Russia was again severely affected. Sixth pandemic, called the Third, by the strain Bengal in Indonesia in 1961 and reached Bangladesh in 1963, India in 1964, and the URSS in 1966. And the last one, Latin American pandemic, 1991 to 1993. The Latin American pandemic, which caused nearly 18,100 affected and around 7,500 deaths. Thank you.